But even if the structures in their brains differ from ours, and these differences mean that they probably experience things differently, that certainly doesn't mean that emotions in animals are inherently impossible. It simply means that it is more difficult for us to imagine what their emotions might feel like. Though we all are experiencing things differently, one thing that we do all share is that we are experiencing an experience. We are experiencing things as the ant is experiencing things. We are experiencing things differently, but we are both experiencing at the very same time. We might not be experiencing certain sensations to the extent which the ant is experiencing them, nor is the ant experiencing things to the extent which we are experiencing them, but both the ant and us are experiencing. There is no measurement of the conscious experience. There simply is consciousness. Though it is nearly impossible to define exactly what consciousness is, a definition that expresses the reality of consciousness says that it's the thing that feels like something. It is the spark of life which we experience at the very center of our being, not necessarily the physical center, but the spiritual center, and where our experience of the experiences comes from. One of the primary characteristics of consciousness is one's reactions to its surrounding world. Whether this is a human jumping out of the way from a train, a dog excited that their owner just arrived home, or an ant perceiving and responding to a threat, many of the actively conscious creatures we come across are reacting to their surroundings. This is instead of automatically acting as a robot and executing preset patterns as some humans subconsciously believe animals to be doing. Many, if not all, conscious things show a reactive relationship with the environment around them. Life forms such as many animals possess what I call animate domain, which is the capacity that allows them to react to stimulus immediately in our frame of time. Unlike plants, which react on a vastly different timeline, while things like flies have vastly different lifespans and time frames to us humans, they are still able to react in real time to their surroundings. I have never seen a tree flinch at an incoming chainsaw, but I've seen a small fly react to an incoming hand. Consciousness is the baseline of something that is experiencing, but that does not mean that it is the only factor to be taken into consideration when observing the experience of individuals. Two other factors to be taken into consideration when considering the experience of an individual is one's sentience and cognition. The baseline experience of consciousness in pair with the two faculties of sentience and cognition ultimately make up one's reality and ability to react independently towards their surroundings. Sentience is one's capacity to experience feelings and sensations, while one's cognition is their mental capacity to intake, process, retain, and manipulate information. While cognition can generally be tested, sentience is a little more difficult to quantify and gauge. Let's use a quick example to illustrate the differences between these three elements. Take a hawk, for example. The hawk being alive, awake, and experiencing is the hawk being conscious. The hawk might be experiencing a wide array of specific emotions and states, such as hunger, fear, aggression, and pain, which would all be a result of their sentience. The hawk having capabilities such as building social hierarchies in communities, powerful vision and aerial hunting prowess, with their ability to learn to utilize these skills, is a function of their cognitive capacity. Now let's put the hawk next to a crow. Notice how a crow possesses the same faculties as the hawk: awake and moving, experiencing life, active socio-survival strategies, and yet the two are very different creatures. Yet both are equally as alive and experiencing. The crow possesses strengths and weaknesses of its own, such as weaker eyes and a much different strategy for obtaining food. But does that mean the crow is any less of a being than the hawk? Even though the crow's eyes are weaker than the hawk's, does that mean the crow is experiencing life any less vividly? Even though the crow does not hunt and execute with the same cognitive functions as the hawk, does that make the crow's experience any less vivid or show that it isn't as intelligent as the hawk? The same is true about humans, an animal, and the rest of animals. Animals each have our consciousness, which is our possession of whatever the experiencing, enlivening spark sitting at the driver's seat of our bodies is. while at the same time the different types of animals possess varying capacities to experience sensations and to process and retain the world around them to be used in the future. Because most animals possess all three of these capacities, consciousness, sentience, cognition, the discussion of how our experience differs from the experience of others is a matter of degree, not kind. Animals experience stimulations on a large scale of intensities, meaning some may experience certain stimuli more than humans, and some might experience the same stimuli less so. This further means that animals possess the same fundamental capacities responsible for the stimulus that is experienced in humans, and therefore it can be reasonably deduced that they are also experiencing similar stimuli. A matter of degree, not kind, means that our differences lay in the vast grey scale of experiences rather than animals being on a totally different scale altogether.